There are upheavals in life that make no sound, yet they tear apart the entire energetic structure of the two people involved. When the outside world looks in, they see only an ordinary breakup, one person leaving and another being left behind. But for those who understand the unconscious, the ego, and the shadow, the way Carl Jung describes them, they know that not all separations are the same, because there is a kind of breakup that does not take place in the heart, but in the energetic field, and that is the moment the empath finally walks away from the narcissist. This is not the end of a love story. This is the rupture of a soul contract, a spiritual event invisible to the naked eye. Throughout their time together, the empath unconsciously acted as a steady source of light, a place where the narcissist's darkness clung in order to survive. They offered understanding, gentleness, forgiveness, and a vast amount of pure emotional energy that they themselves didn't realize they were providing. And because of that, the narcissist, lacking the ability to generate inner light, used the empath as an energetic life support machine to sustain their fabricated identity. But no source of light can be exploited forever. One day, the empath, after hundreds of small wounds and countless moments of having their intuition turned against them, finally awakens. That is the moment they pull their energy back. No announcement, no anger, no chaos, just a quiet withdrawal. Yet it is this very quietness that becomes thunder in the unseen world. Because in that instant, the energetic structures of both people begin to shift. For the empath, it is liberation. For the narcissist, it is the beginning of collapse. This is what Jung calls the moment the shadow rises. When the mirror reflecting light disappears, the shadow no longer has anywhere to hide. And the moment the empath walks away, the narcissist is forced to confront the one thing they have run from all their life, the emptiness within their own soul. It is not merely losing a person, it is losing a source of life, and when the light withdraws, the darkness is forced into the open. This is the true beginning of spiritual collapse. Part 1. The hidden truth behind the empath-narcissist energy bond. The first truth that must be acknowledged is this. The bond between an empath and a narcissist is never just an ordinary romantic relationship. It operates like an energetic system, one in which one side carries light and life, and the other survives by feeding on that light to keep their false self from collapsing. This is the core reason why the relationship is intense, draining, and yet strangely magnetic. Empaths are born with sharp intuition, wide open hearts, and the ability to feel another's pain as if it were their own. This is not a weakness, it is a rare spiritual quality. They quite literally radiate light, a frequency that makes others feel understood, soothed, and seen. For wounded, fragmented, or hollow souls, this light is salvation. And for the narcissist, it is exactly the thing they crave but cannot create within themselves. Behind their initial charm and confidence, the narcissist is, in truth, an unstable energetic structure. They possess no inner flame, no authentic emotional flow, no capacity to self-heal. Everything they present, charm, mystery, attentiveness, is a mask. But a mask can only survive if it has fuel. And where does that fuel come from? From the empathy, forgiveness, and unconditional devotion of the empath. At the beginning, the narcissist unconsciously scans for the right energetic type people who are sensitive, compassionate, drawn to healing, easy to understand, and prone to self-blame. When they find an empath, they immediately recognize a source of light they can plug into. And the relationship begins with an almost spiritual pull. The narcissist mirrors back every beautiful quality the empath holds. But this is not destiny. It is the capture of light. When an empath loves, they love with their entire soul. They give empathy, understanding, endless patience, warm presence, energies of extremely high frequency. And it is this very stream of energy that maintains the hollowness inside the narcissist. The empath believes they are helping, healing, doing the right thing. But in reality, they are functioning like a solar panel, continuously charging someone who has no intention of generating energy themselves. This is the truth most empaths never realize until they are exhausted. Their love does not heal the narcissist, it only prolongs the narcissist's illusion. And because this relationship is based on one-way energetic exchange, light given, darkness absorbed. The moment the empath pulls their energy back, the entire system begins to destabilize. What occurs is not a breakup, it is a spiritual event that severs a life source. And from that moment, the narcissist's true collapse begins. Part 2, the moment the empath withdraws energy, the silent breaking point of a spiritual system. The moment the empath withdraws energy never comes with warning. It does not arrive in screams, in impulsive decisions, or after a dramatic fight. It often happens on an ordinary afternoon when their mind suddenly recognizes a truth too obvious yet long obscured. I cannot continue sacrificing my soul to keep someone who refuses to see me. And this realization, quiet, untheatrical, unannounced, becomes the first earthquake in the unseen world. What makes this moment so profound is that it is not merely a physical departure. It is the act of reclaiming power. Throughout the relationship, the empath unknowingly handed over the right to define their worth to someone incapable of seeing the worth of anyone but their inflated ego. When the empath withdraws energy, they are taking back everything they had given away unconsciously. Validation, attention, unconditional empathy, limitless forgiveness, and above all, the ability to make the narcissist feel full. This destabilizes the entire energetic system that was flawed from the beginning. The empath feels it first. They feel as though they've stepped out of a toxic chamber. They breathe deeper, not because their lungs have expanded, but because their energy is no longer suffocating. They look back at the things that confused them and finally see they were never the problem. Those were unconscious tactics of the narcissist designed to maintain emotional dependency. As this awareness rises, they feel as if their soul has been pulled out of a prison so familiar it once felt normal. Vic. Meanwhile, on the other side, the narcissist feels a snapping of a cord they cannot name. To them, the empath was never just a companion. They were an emotional regulator, a silent energy supply, a mirror reflecting back the sense of importance their fabricated self depended on to survive. When the empath withdraws their energy, the narcissist doesn't just lose a person, they lose an entire system that kept their ego alive. Spiritually, this is described as the energetic plug being pulled from a device that never had its own internal battery. The narcissist begins to feel the original emptiness they have spent their entire life running from. No one to absorb their emotions, no one to reflect their significance, no one to soak in, endure, or flatten their chaotic feelings anymore. A sense of aimlessness rises, an uncomfortable silence appears not in the space around them, but within their soul. A silence they fear most. The deepest truth here lies in the paradox. The empath leaves in silence, yet that silence becomes the loudest sound in the narcissist's inner world. It is the signal of illusion collapsing. The echo of loss does not come from losing a lover, but from losing the source of light they had been living parasitically upon. What turns this moment into the breaking point of the entire system is not the breakup itself, but the shift in energetic balance. For the first time, the empath chooses themselves instead of choosing to rescue someone else. And when that light returns to its rightful owner, the darkness the narcissist once pushed onto the empath begins to flow back to them because it no longer has anywhere else to cling. The moment the empath withdraws their energy is the moment illusion unravels, the mask begins to crack, and the truth the narcissist has spent a lifetime avoiding stands there, waiting to be faced. This is not the end of a relationship. This is a redistribution of energy, the empath's ascent back into light, and the narcissist's descent into their own shadow. Part 3, the spiritual collapse of the narcissist. When the light disappears and darkness becomes their only companion, when the empath pulls their energy away, most narcissists do not collapse immediately. The first thing they do is perform. They put on the face of, I'm fine, I'm happier than ever, I've already found someone new, or even I'm living my best life without you. But all of this proves only one thing. They are resisting the truth that their inner world has just gone dark. The narcissist's collapse does not begin externally. It begins within their energetic field, where they no longer have anyone to drain, no one to reflect their importance, and no one to sustain the illusion of self they worked so hard to maintain. This feels like being suddenly disconnected from oxygen, a silent panic familiar only to those who survive by consuming the energy of others. When the empath's light disappears, what rises first in the narcissist is not longing, but their own darkness. In Jungian terms, this is the moment the shadow, the buried, repressed part of the psyche surfaces. It is the realm the narcissist has spent their entire life avoiding, the realm of smallness, emptiness, meaninglessness, and the inability to truly connect. Without light to anchor them, the shadow no longer stays suppressed. It floods everything. This expresses itself externally through states many people observe but never understand. Restless agitation, scattered thoughts, emotional outbursts, irrational irritability, impulsive behavior, and a desperate hunger for attention. They don't know what is happening, but their soul does. The energy supply that once kept them alive has vanished. The most painful truth is this. The narcissist does not miss the person they lost. They miss the version of themselves that appeared in the empath's eyes. In other words, they do not miss you. They miss the beautiful self they only felt when you were present. When that mirror disappears, they fall into a full-blown ego crisis, a collapse of the persona, the social mask Jung describes as the ego painted in colors palatable to others. The narcissist persona is usually polished, convincing, even admirable, but it depends heavily on external energy. Without the empath sustaining it, the mask begins to crack. The cracks appear in emotional instability, in erratic behavior even they cannot explain, and in the deep fear that they are losing the ability to perform for the world. At a deeper spiritual level, the narcissist enters what can only be called energetic collapse. Life begins to feel dull, flat, tasteless. Relationships no longer offer the emotional high they used to provide. They may jump into a new relationship quickly, only to realize that no one shines the way the empath once did because they do not love the new person. They are desperately trying to reclaim the energy they have lost. But no one has light like you. No one loves at your frequency. No one gives energy with the purity you once offered. And when the narcissist realizes this, though they will never admit it, the true collapse begins, a collapse into the emptiness within themselves. At this point, what they feel most deeply is not loneliness, but a spiritual silence, a suffocating quiet that exposes the black hole they once used you to cover. This is the moment Jung describes as the darkness swallowing the light when the ego no longer has anything to hold on to. And here lies the paradox. The empath leaves in silence, but that silence becomes the loudest noise in the narcissist's spiritual world. Part 4, the energetic rebirth of the empath. When the light returns to its rightful owner, the narcissist's collapse always unfolds alongside another process, the rebirth of the empath. The paradox is that while the narcissist believes they have lost control, the empath is actually reclaiming something they never realized they owned, their own soul. This rebirth does not erupt loudly or brilliantly at first. It begins softly, almost invisibly, like the first whisper of intuition after years of being drowned out by manipulation and gaslighting. In the early stage, the empath does not feel powerful, they simply feel lighter, as though an invisible weight has finally slipped off their shoulders. This happens because once detached from the narcissist's energetic field, the empath begins to escape the toxic gravitational pull that had kept them locked in a cycle of fight, save, prove. These were the 3 survival modes that defined the entire relationship. Every breath was a subtle tension. Every emotion had been shaped by someone else's needs. Every movement had to be calculated so as not to trigger the narcissist's wounds. When that cord breaks, their nervous system finally exhales. And the moment they learn to breathe again, the journey of rebirth begins. The first shift is mental clarity. What they once believed was their nature being too sensitive, too anxious, too self-blaming, too easily overwhelmed was merely a survival response to the narcissist's chaos. Without gaslighting or guilt controlling them, their mind begins restoring order. Thoughts that once spiraled endlessly now align. Self-doubt dissolves. And intuition, a gift they were born with, returns stronger than ever. The second shift is physical healing. Empaths rarely realize they have been living in chronic stress. A toxic relationship does not only damage the mind, it weakens the nervous system, immune system, sleep cycles, and even heart rhythm. When the toxic source is severed, their body emerges from the fog. They sleep deeper. They breathe more steadily. They feel a surprising lightness in their chest. This is the sign of an energetic field cleaning itself. The third shift, and the most important, is that their light begins returning to its rightful owner. Throughout the relationship, their light compassion, loyalty, warmth, sensitivity had been aimed at the wrong target. It shone on someone who did not know how to receive, reciprocate, or cherish it. And when energy is not reciprocated, it doesn't disappear, it gets drained. But once the draining stops, the light flows back home, like water returning to its source, like a soul returning to itself. At this stage, the empath reconnects with their true identity. They begin to remember who they were before the manipulation. They remember that they once loved life, once created, once dreamed, once felt confidently peaceful. They realize their sensitivity was never a curse. It was a gift, Their kindness was never a weakness. It was power. Their empathy was never something everyone deserved. It was a privilege. And this is what the narcissist never expected. When the empath leaves, they don't just reclaim their energy. They ascend. Their frequency rises to a level the narcissist can no longer reach. The more the empath regenerates, the clearer, stronger, calmer, and more magnetic they become. They begin attracting things that match their soul, healthier relationships, better opportunities, and more harmonious environments. And the most miraculous part? They do not hate. They do not seek revenge. They do not wish suffering upon the narcissist. They simply keep walking in their own light. And that very peace, the peace they embody, is the one thing the narcissist will never overcome. Part 5, the law of spiritual balance. When energy returns to its rightful owner and the narcissist receives their universe feedback, the empath's departure is not merely a personal decision. It activates a universal law operating across all spiritual systems and Jungian psychology, the law of energetic balance. No one can take endlessly without consequence, and no one can give endlessly without restoration. When the empath withdraws their energy, a chain reaction begins subtle yet frighteningly precise. This is not karma in the punishing sense. It is the natural result of a scale that had been tilted far too long. First, the immediate event is the reversal of the energy flow. Throughout the relationship, the empath had continuously given emotions, understanding, support, forgiveness. This energy flowed in one direction toward the narcissist, sustaining the illusions of self they could not maintain on their own. But when the bond is cut, the flow reverses. The empath does nothing. The energy simply begins returning automatically. And by natural law, when light returns to one side, the other is plunged into the void they once avoided. This is the emptiness, the stage where the narcissist begins to feel the deficit they long concealed behind manipulation and control. Second, the narcissist's mask begins to fall apart. Without the empath's energy amplifying their image, only the true self remains. Fragile, disoriented, and undefined. Their charm weakens. Their once confident voice sounds hollow. New relationships no longer give the energetic high they crave. What people often don't understand is the narcissist does not know how to truly connect. They only know how to connect to feed. Without compatible energy, all strategies and manipulation techniques become useless. This is the unveiling point, the moment the world begins to feel their inauthenticity, once hidden behind the empath's light. Third, the law of balance forces the narcissist to face what they avoided their entire life, their own shadow. Jung once said, "The shadow we do not face will return as fate." And indeed, once the empath no longer acts as the container for that shadow, it floods back to its owner. The restlessness, anger, emptiness, and chaos they once projected onto the empath now return to them. This is why many narcissists, after losing their main supply, experience a deep wave of instability, insomnia, emotional dysregulation, impulsivity, or even covert depression. Not because they loved, but because they lost the place where they disposed of their darkness. Fourth, the narcissist's outer world begins to mirror back who they truly are. Previously, the empath was the stabilizing buffer that kept the narcissist's life from falling apart. When that buffer disappears, life mirrors them directly. New people treat them exactly as they once treated the empath: cold, indifferent, exploitative, inconsistent. This is not punishment. This is resonance. We attract what matches our frequency, and without the empath's borrowed light, all they have left is their own frequency, chaotic, empty, inauthentic. Fifth, and most profoundly, the empath begins attracting blessings aligned with their true frequency. Without energy leakage, they return to their original state, full, clear, pure. This frequency draws stronger intuition, better relationships, better opportunities, and the inner peace they thought was lost forever. Because the universe does not take from someone without restoring precisely what belongs to them. So what is the narcissist's true karma? Not failure, not suffering, not loneliness. Their karma is being forced to live with their true self. Without borrowed light, without parasitic energy, without anyone left to reflect a flattering image back to them. That is the most subtle punishment the universe gives to a soul that refuses to learn. Part 6, when the empath enters the ascension stage, the rising of the higher self. Once the energetic cords are cut and the spiritual balance is restored, the empath steps into an extraordinary phase 1 that many philosophical and spiritual traditions call ascension, the elevation of the soul. But the important truth is this: ascension does not happen because they are stronger than others. It happens because they finally stop trying to save what never wanted to save itself. Ascension is not rising into the sky. It is returning to one's true frequency, a frequency that had been suppressed for far too long by manipulation, confusion, and the fear of disappointing others. When the empath escapes the distorted energetic field of the narcissist, they begin to feel something they never dared to believe before. I am still whole. This is the greatest revelation of their journey. First, the empath begins to sense their original intuition, again, no longer distorted by gaslighting or fear. Their intuition becomes sharper, faster, deeper. They see the hidden motives behind people's actions without needing anyone to explain them. They can distinguish between safe energy and toxic energy. This is not vague instinct. This is soul-level perception after no longer being trapped in the narcissist web. This is the first step of awakening. Second, they begin to feel a peace they once believed was a luxury. Without having to manage someone else's emotions or maintain balance within a chaotic mind, their nervous system enters recovery. Stillness becomes the sign that the empath is returning to their central axis. Peace is not the absence of noise. Peace is no longer being controlled by the noise. In this moment, the soul understands that it has finally escaped the emotional whirlwind that dominated it for years. Third, they start experiencing meaningful synchronicities. This is a familiar sign in the ascension process. The right doors open, good people appear, timely opportunities show up. The universe responds when their energy realigns. Jung called this the communication of the unconscious with the events of daily life. The empath realizes they were never walking alone. There was always a current guiding them, but they could never hear it because the narcissist noise was too loud. Fourth, they begin to rise creatively because creative energy and soul energy are one. When they no longer need to use all their strength merely to survive the relationship, they finally have extra energy to create writing, art, work, friendships, even the personal identity they once lost. This isn't just a hobby. It is the renaissance of the self. Fifth, the empath enters what many spiritual teachers call higher self-embodiment. This is the stage where they no longer react from old emotional patterns, no longer get triggered by others' chaos, no longer chase validation, no longer try to fix anyone, no longer fear abandonment, no longer overvalue things that once kept them anxious. They become the observer, not the one who is swept away. This shift is profoundly powerful because from this point onward, the narcissist can no longer reach them. The frequencies are too far apart. The empath no longer emits signals that others can feed on. They no longer unconsciously offer their energy to protect others from themselves. They shine in a way that cannot be manipulated, controlled, or claimed. Sixth, the empath realizes that their silence is more than a strategy. It is the language of maturity. In this ascension stage, silence becomes a sacred space where the soul reorganizes itself. What once felt like emptiness now reveals itself as freedom. In the quiet, they hear their own heartbeat again, a heartbeat they had forgotten while living for someone else's emotions. And finally, the most miraculous truth. The empath does not try to prove they have risen. They simply rise. No declarations, no announcements, no boasting. Their new self speaks for itself. Peace in their eyes, steadiness in their voice, radiance in their energy. This is what the narcissist will never understand. The empath does not rise to seek revenge. They rise because